Hey, hey,
Hey, how are you?
great. How you doing?
Doing awesome.
We're live right
Let's,
now. Sales
let's
coaching
go.
uncut. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of public opinion.
I was counting on that.
Well, you look all gussied up. I suddenly feel underdressed.
You are. You're always underdressed.
Yeah, fresh out of the
Okay.
gym.
Are you?
Yeah,
I love
right out
that.
beast mode. Gym, kids off to school, right to work, no shower. That's
Listen, I did it all this morning. Four kids on the bus, school, drop off, preschool. I already had a meeting this morning and then you. So
I never really got into this with you. The four kids thing.
you have three. What are you talking about?
I know I got three, but I don't know. It's like when you go to four, it just seems like you're putting it in a different gear. Like three, and they're like feral animals. They're just wandering around wild, free
Yeah.
range. Do
What's
you
how
do
old are
that too? I mean, you're leading a sales team.
Yeah.
You got a full-time job, full-time life, and you got four of those little bastards running around. How do you do it?
You just do it. It's like there's no it's not an option. You just do it. You just
Okay.
get up every day and you do it. I
Okay.
and you make it fun. I think that's
How old is the youngest?
so my youngest is 4, soon to be 5. How old's your youngest?
Four, soon to be five. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
the
I mean,
youngest, those are the ones that kind of set the tone as far as the work, right?
yeah, I think my youngest is definitely he is like a hostage like I have to like go into like negotiations with him. He out of oh my gosh, I hope he never sees this. Out of my four, he's probably been my toughest.
Yeah.
If he was my first, I would only have had one.
Do your kids know what you do? Do they understand your job?
Um, my oldest does. She said she's like, "Oh, I Googled you," and a couple of things that I had written and a couple of events I attended. My second, I think, definitely understands, probably more than my first. My third, I don't even think he knows what working is.
Yeah.
He's like my mom sits at a computer, and my fourth definitely does not give a crap. He does not give a shit. He busted it. I could be on the most important meeting in the face of the earth, and he's like, "Can you open this?" So, but no,
Yeah.
I think with time they'll figure it out. My second does for the last 2 years when we do the kindergarten charts of what you want to be when all the questions before they start. You know what I'm talking about? Like the
Yeah.
list. One of the questions on there is like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Last year she said a salesperson, and this year she said a saleswoman.
All
So
right.
yeah, so I think
So there's a little influence, right?
yeah, yeah.
Nobody says
Although I
that
don't
by
know if I
accident.
want this life for her, honestly.
It's like the mob, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing this to pay the bills. I want a better life for you.
I mean, I would not be mad if she went into, I don't know, anything else.
Anything else? Okay. This is a real great recruiting video here for
No, no,
working
no, I
KO.
kid. No, I kid. But there's it's so funny. My CRO and I were talking with the team the other day, and we are talking about how many quarters we have now been in sales. And I think for me, I think it was, let's see if I did this math right. It's been almost 20 years, 4 quarters a year, 80 quarters. I've been doing this for 80 quarters. You multiply that by, three, it's so many. I mean, I've just done this so many months and just chasing that quota it's a little thrilling. You get the little dopamine hits here and there.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's definitely, it can be stressful, especially, you caught me at Q4. So we're chasing that number down.
Yeah. I mean, is it ever, I mean, there's like a brief moment once the number is in, but the month or quarter hasn't been met. Like you've hit the quota, but the goal is still running, right?
Mhm.
Like the month's not over, quarter's not over, so you can have a little swagger, right?
Yeah.
And the pressure's a little bit off, and you're celebrating a little bit, and you're trying to blow it out, and then it's like a day later, it's a gut punch again. You're back to zero.
0.
Yeah.
I I think so we talk a lot about this because you want to avoid the hangover. And it's I think for me, I've never really celebrated. Like truly be like, yeah, let's get like you're like, hey, team, great job. And but to like walk away, I don't know. I think it's just being steady the entire time is so much more emotionally healthy for you than having your high highs and your low lows. So
All
it's like,
right.
okay, great, acknowledging, wow, great job. I got there, we got there. Um, like what went well, reflecting, great, keep going to the next. I think if you actually, I know that sounds awful, but I mean, the only time I celebrated, actually, this is back to my Viacor days where I really, truly, truly was like, let's go. It was probably the most proud spiff I ever won. It was the Mark Beer spiff, and I think I won like $10,000 or something. I celebrated that time because, 20, how old were we? 22, 23, and I hit 150 enrollments. I think it was like $10,000 payout. Kate, shout out to Kate. Kate and I went out and drank some champagne with Erin Lilly and some lobster and some steak, and that was a good one.
Yeah.
And obviously, like year end, I celebrate. I guess I shouldn't say. Once you kind of like, okay, I need to like reset, take a look back at my year. But yeah, otherwise, this job will kill you.
I've seen that you take the team out though. I mean, as a leader, you kind of lead the band to go celebrate after a solid month, solid quarter.
Well, of course, this I think I'm more referring to my like how I personally handle it. No, outwardly, everybody wants to be celebrated. And for
Yeah.
people like me who aren't proactive about celebrating themselves, if my boss is like, hey, let's go out to dinner to celebrate, what you accomplished last quarter, I would never say no, and that'd feel great. But I don't think I would do it for myself. And I think as a leader, that's something that you want to do, right? Is take a moment to give them a moment to sit in the victory and remember what that feels like. Like, how did I get here? Like, what went really well? What could I have done better? And look around and be like, who helped me here? We did this together. But you definitely need as a leader, to create those moments for them to sit with their feelings.
And you need the positive reinforcement, right? It's
Oh,
a
100%.
psychological game that we're playing constantly in sales and getting yourself up and going. You need something to drive towards. And
I
that
totally
feeling
agree.
that you have when it's like you're at the top of the mountain at the end of a month or quarter is
Yeah.
there's nothing like it.
Yeah. There really, there really isn't that excitement that you're like, oh, I just need this one and it closes. And you're like, oh, but then you're like, oh God, okay, I need now. Did I burn pipeline from next quarter? Am I good?
Well, it sounds like that's what you're thinking because you're not letting your foot off the gas. So are you thinking when you get a big number in, it's like, great, glad all those deals closed. Every single one is now a deal that's out of my pipeline for the next quarter.
1,000%.
Okay. Wow. So you're tortured. You just
Oh
tortured
yeah, that's
yourself.
what I'm saying. I don't want
Yeah.
this life in my job. I mean, again, we're talking about me. These are not
Yeah.
best practices, right?
No.
This is how my brain operates. I actually, you think you talk about how people like getting feedback. I don't love getting positive feedback. Positive feedback makes me incredibly uncomfortable. When I thrive, when people are like, here are the things that you need to improve on. Here are the things that you're not doing well. I'm like, oh, great. Like I have somewhere to go. It's like a goal. I don't know if this is how most people are wired. But that's for me. I like the challenge of getting after something and fixing something. So
Mhm.
that's what fills my bucket.
You're not alone. I mean, I remember from way back, even when we were at Viacord, as much success as I had and as many months as I would string together, I would always start a new month with, all right, that was it. I can't do it again. And I'm a fraud and I was lucky. I just got a bunch of lucky deals
You're gonna get
and
found
things
out
just kind of fell in place. And this is the month where it all comes out that it's just I've just been lucky and that's it. Lucky deals, lucky opportunities. I've been in the right place, answering the right call or the right email at the right time. And it's all
yeah.
going to come crashing down now.
And here you are 20 years later, done the CEO
Still doing it.
thing, done the HubSpot, done the
Still,
founder.
yeah, and probably feel that way more than ever now because my role is like a bunch of shit that I have no track record in. Like, there's so much that I can't look back on and say, okay, look at the other side of it. There is no other side for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you and I talked about this the other day. It's remarkable what you're doing. I think, just, it's kind of like going to the gym. Putting your shoes on is the hardest thing. So many people have ideas. So many people say, oh, here's an interesting solution to a problem that I'm seeing or a need in the market. And what stops them is the idea of having to begin the inertia and begin the moment, beginning that you did it. Like you did it. It's incredible. I think that's the coolest thing ever. And I have so much respect for you for that. I don't know how you do it and realize you have to feed these children every day and you're, everything is on you, but I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's no doubt a lot of pressure, but at the same time, and I think you mentioned it just a minute ago, putting your shoes on, getting the inertia started. When you think of a whole thing and anything, not just, starting a business, but anything, if you look at the entire scope of it, it seems overwhelming. You don't know where to begin, what to do, where to take that first step. But once you get going and you really commit to it, like anything else, and you start chopping it down into its smaller components and pieces of, okay, I got to do this and then I got to do that and I got to go figure out that and then know what to do here. You just figure it out. Like you with 4 kids, right? Like
This is
if you
true.
back in your
Well, to
Viagra days when you
say
were
my own word
single,
used against me, sir.
well, back when you were, a solo sales rep, single, no one at home waiting for you. If somebody came up to you and said, "Hey, you could probably do the same job or even more demanding job with 4 kids depending on you, right?"
Yeah.
Or they're like, "Are you crazy? What are you talking about?" Right?
Oh,
No, it's either or. It's not
yeah.
both. But now here you are doing both.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is you're right. If you had, although when I was in sales, I decided to get married very early. I'm obviously currently not going through a divorce, so that's a different podcast. But but I did. I mean, I would put in the hours when I was an IC. I worked my tail off. I worked Saturdays. It was wild. And I could have never imagined doing that with children. And
Yeah.
you do. You figure it out. I probably work just as hard as I did as an IC back in my 20s now, leading America sales for customer.io. And I try to be smarter with my time and what have you, but it's definitely you just adjust. You find the pockets that work for you and when you're most productive.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
mentioned your kid is now putting saleswoman down as potential jobs of the future. One thing I never asked you, and knowing you for 20 years, how did you get into this gig? Like nobody except for your kid. Your kid's the first one I've ever heard of that said, "No, I think I want to be in sales when I grow up." Nobody else thinks like that. What did you go
Yeah.
to school for?
So this is I don't think I've told this story before, but I don't think anybody's actually asked me. Um, I I went to UCSD and I wanted to go and be a physician assistant, a PA. So I went initially for microbiology. I ended up changing last minute just to cut the amount of units I needed. Did neuropsychology, and my intent was come to Boston, and my ex-husband or soon to be ex-husband went to Boston University. So going back to his native land and go to Northeastern, which was the best school in the country at the time for a physician assistant to attend. So great. I moved myself across country with him. And before applying to PA school, you need to get 2,000 medical assistant hours in. And so I was working with a recruiter, I think her name was Marcy, um, to look at different doctor's offices. And so I think I went to like 6 or 7 different doctor's offices. I got all the interviews, and she's like, "Okay, I have to give you feedback, and I also have an opportunity for you." I said, "Okay." She goes, "All the doctors were very intimidated by you. they don't often see this, but you were a hard closer. Like at the end of each interview, it was great. Is there any reason that you would not give me this job? And they'd be like, no, there's no reason. There's nothing. It's yours, right?
Don't hurt
And
me.
yeah, don't hurt me. But no, I was a very aggressive closer. And she goes, I never have jobs like these, but I think the firm was called Monument Staffing. And which is okay, we're gonna scroll. Okay. You have to follow my thread. We're gonna come back to this in a
Oh,
second.
rabbit holes. Love the rabbit
Yeah,
holes.
yeah, we're going down a rabbit hole. So the firm was called Monument Staffing. And she goes, the owner is friends with somebody at this biotech company, and they have this really interesting role as a BDR. I think I forgot what they called, like a patient consultant or something. And it's more like sales. And I was like, oh no, I don't do that. That's not me. I'm in medical. And she's like, just go for the interview and see what happens. These jobs never come across my table. Like we're in a completely different genre, right? They're like doctor's offices, more very like traditional healthcare placement. I was like, all right. So I went and I interviewed with Susan in person. And it was the old school days where they slide the offer across the table,
Yeah.
and and when I saw what I would be making, I think it was someone's gonna come out of the woodwork and tell me I was wrong, but I think it was like 60K OTE, maybe 40K. It was like 30 something. But when I saw that number, I mean, these doctor's offices were willing to pay me $8, $9 an hour. Like
Yeah.
I thought that was a lot. And you're gonna tell me you're gonna pay me double that? I was like, okay, this is an easy math equation. I'm a smart kid. I'm gonna do this job for 1 year, save up all the extra money, and then use that money to pay off my grad school, my PA, and then I won't have any loans. Like I'm the most brilliant person you've ever met in your life. Like this is very smart. It'll just delay me starting PA school by 2 years, and that's
That's it.
okay.
1 year. In and
Yeah.
out. 1 year.
Yeah, just 1 year. My first year, 6 months in, I was promoted into an AE role. And I think my first year, I made a little over six figures, my first full year as an AE. And I was like, yeah, I think I can do this for a couple more years. And I never got out. That was
Yeah.
it.
So you
So
started as a BDR?
yeah, I started as a BDR. I was
Okay.
calling for referrals,
Yeah,
basically.
that's how I started.
Yeah. And then what was wild is 20 years later, I was sitting there thinking like, who should I thank for my career? Like, how did I get here? And I thought back to that recruiter and I was like going through my emails and then I find her. It took me, this was like probably a couple of days of going down ClickHoles and doing research and trying to recall memory, trying to hack into my old Gmail accounts, that kind of stuff. I found her and I wrote her through LinkedIn a message. And then when I looked at her connections, she is actually the cousin of Katie Burke, who is the
Yeah.
former chief people officer for HubSpot. I was like, which is where I spent 8 years of my career after you referred me. So
Yeah.
what a small world. Like what a small world. Um, but I thanked her. I was like, hey, listen, you gave me that feedback about being a strong closer. You presented this opportunity. And back to how we initially started this conversation when we said, sometimes I just feel lucky. I always thought like, wow, how lucky did I get that I hit my quota? How lucky did I get that I was presented this opportunity? But yeah, there might have been an aspect of luck there, but I was ready. I came from a very, humble upbringing. My mom worked really hard. We started with nothing and she slowly built her own career and she was in sales. But she never went to like school, right? And, she would always like tell me you need to show up to your interview with a suit on. So I did. You need to show up to work with your suit on. So I did at 5 my first day. But I was prepared. I was prepared for that opportunity. And even though I never thought I'd be in sales, I think it was nurtured into me from a very young age.
I was just going to ask you that. Do you think it is more nurture than nature? You weren't born with it. It was the influence of people like your mom that,
1,000%.
yeah,
1,000%. I by nature, I don't think I would be in sales. I'm not, I work with some incredibly charismatic people, some, you know, gosh, I hope I don't get roasted for this, the quintessential tech bros. I love you all. You all deserve a place in my life, but that's not me, right? I'm a little quirky. I definitely have ADHD tendencies. Um, I am very creative. I'm a mom, I'm a woman, I'm a Latina. Um, not that those things don't make you by nature a salesperson, but I just, I thought I would end up in more academia and or healthcare or something like that. But no, I think, you know, I remember these small moments in my life where I'm like, oh yeah, no, I was definitely nurtured for sales. I I had and not just by my like my mom, but just intrinsically, I realized I was like, okay, my parents don't have a lot of money. I really want to buy the little, what do they call them, like hibachis, like the little Tamagotchis back in the day.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to get a troll as well. And they cost money. My parents won't buy me it. What can I do to save money? And I remember like looking at the cans of like root beer and saying 10 cents. And so I did some research and asked around, and I was told that if you collect aluminum cans, you can bring them to a recycling center and they'll give you money for them. So I was like, everybody throws them away. I got my little red wagon in Marietta, California, 110-degree desert, walked up and down my streets and my little neighborhood, and I asked each person for recycling cans. Will you let me dig through your trash? Will you go find them? And God bless them, people gave me cans and I got my troll. So, you
How
know,
old are you?
gosh, I must have been maybe 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was third, fourth grade. Uh, selling magazines door to door to get the little like Furby.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities as children in sales. I think I got to witness that with my own 9-year-old. It was Doyen. It was the cutest thing you've ever seen. It was like, as a sales leader, one of my proudest moments as a parent from like a sales perspective. So it was a couple years ago, it was like 2 years ago, and we're selling door-to-door cookies. And now, like, we live in a nice neighborhood. I've done well for myself, right? I've done well for us. We live in a very like home alone, you know, neighborhood, right?
Gilmore
So
Girls. It's all
yeah,
Gilmore Girls all day. Yeah.
yeah. And so my daughter's going door to door. And then she gets to the next door and she stops at the end of the driveway. She looks up and then she keeps walking. I was like, what, are you gonna quit? You're not gonna keep knocking on the door? She's like, no. I was like, why? Why, like, are you going home? She's like, no, 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 we're just gonna skip this house. And I was like, why? Don't you want to knock on all the doors? And she goes, Mom, there's no cars in the driveway and all the lights are off. It's a very long driveway. So the time it takes me to get from here to the front door and back, that's time I'm losing. It's the sun is coming down. That's time I'm losing to get to the next house that can buy. And I was so shook. It was this moment of like, my child understands how to qualify the sale and let go of a deal better than most of my reps. There
Yeah.
are
She's looking
not
at
good
intent
buying
data.
signs here. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
who needs Zoom info and all these tools? I mean, she really understood like buying intent, right?
Yeah.
And buying signals. There are no buying signals here. What a fundamental concept to understand, process, and act on. And the no fear of losing that sale. She was confident. She was like, no, this is not a qualified house. Let's keep going. And so I watched her throughout that selling spree, how she would iterate her own process and be like, oh, I know this house has 4 children. Like, even if they're not here today, we're putting them on our nurture list and we're coming back here. And she would leave them a note and say, hey, I came by. And so she would hand, like, think of like the prospecting ingenuity. This was not me. This was not me driven. If you know me as a parent, you know that I'm very type B. I'm very like laid back. I'm like, make your own mistakes. I'm not a helicopter mom. I like them to figure out their own shit in the morning. I'm not chasing after them to get on the bus. I come down, but it's their responsibility to manage their time. And if they miss that bus, they have to do chores and then I drive them to school. but there's natural consequences, right? So these are all things that she came up on her own. And I thought it was so cool. So I'm sure like there's some influence from me, but some of it is intrinsic as well.
Yeah. And it's not that she just disqualified that, but the reason why is my time's not worth it. Long driveway, go there, waste my time, come back, get better stuff to do. She has a
Yeah.
value for her time. That's so cool.
Value, like I didn't even think of that. I mean, she is really smart. I don't know. She's I think she'll probably be a CEO. She'll be like a Matt Doyen. She's gonna do some cool shit. I wish I was as smart. All of my children, well, except for one. I won't tell you which one.
Jesus. Okay.
They're probably gonna watch this. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. How smart.
Yeah. This only lives forever on the internet. Don't worry
I
about it.
know. I know. I'm sweating now. Like this.
Yeah.
I feel like I've roasted my children more than anyone. Jeez. They're great. They're angels. I love you all.
So we covered how you got into sales. Tell me about the transition into leadership. So you got in, you started crushing numbers at Viacord, you moved around a little bit. What was the first management opportunity you had?
There's actually a Viacord.
Okay.
Uh, the I it's it's so interesting your perception of where you are and where you should be. I think it was shortly after you left, I threw my name in the hat for a management role. And I was like, I'm one of the best reps. Like I think I was, what was I, number three, number five? I think it was like AJ was up there. God, I hate that guy. I'm just always chasing AJ. No, but I mean, either way, I was in the top five out of, I don't, how many did we have there? 30, 40, 20? What was our number? I can't remember.
When I was there,
Probably.
it was a little over 40.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was in the top 10%. Anyway, so I'm thinking, great, I'm an awesome sales rep and I'm a good team player. I deserve to be in leadership. And I didn't get the role. And I was like, I don't understand. I work really hard. I'm already basically doing the job every Saturday when I was team lead for our Saturday crew, if you remember those days.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and there were things I needed to develop and work on. So after that, the second time around, I went in and I got into leadership. And I the way I remember it is I think I was really bad. I mean, I think I had good role models. Like I got to watch you lead. I thought you were a great leader. Actually, Carrie Del Crescano was never a leader, but like an official leader. But I always loved the way she carried herself. So I always sort of looked up to her and some of her like the characteristics that I thought like resembled leaders or represented leadership well. But that was my first role. And it was tough. I mean, I was managing somebody who is now one of my best guy friends. I was managing my peers, pretty junior team, um, very high activity. We had a semi-transactional sale or predictably transactional, um, you know, direct to consumer. There were a lot of things that were really interesting about that leadership role. But what I appreciated the most was because of the amount of calls we had and the volume of sales, I got to do so much coaching. It probably out of any of the sales leadership roles that I've had, that is probably the one where I did the most amount of coaching and where I really built good fundamentals.
Hmm.
Um, and I love that. I mean, I don't know if you remember, I remember those days fondly. And then from there, I went to lead a B2B, such a drastic change, a B2B enterprise team for RSA, which is security division of EMC, did that for 2 years. And there I picked up a lot of um best practices around how to like your operational command of the business. And I had, she was tough and high out there, but she was amazing. Um, she taught me a lot about just operational rigor and how to look at your business, how to be more data driven And these are things that were never really instilled in me in my prior roles. So every role that I've had, I've definitely picked up more things. And then from there, I went to HubSpot and then so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, my first role, to answer your question, was at Viacord.
And that sprint that you had for coaching there, if you think back, I mean, you just mentioned that you consider yourself pretty immature and unpolished when you got into the job. What did all of that coaching teach you? What did you pull from that that you still use today from that marathon of coaching that you had?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think um I think there's a couple of things. I think like having a plan and consistency. So here's our coaching, here's what we need to fix. Um if I had triple session back then though, I don't know, things would be so different. Not that I'm plugging for triple session, but I am. Um yeah,
Because that was
definitely.
back in the splitter days, right? You had to
Oh my
split
God,
into
yeah.
calls.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I can't remember. Yeah, so you were literally sitting, next to somebody and you're on your splitter. Um, and I'm like writing notes down feverishly. So what was challenging about that was making reps feel confident that they could do it themselves, but also not letting them lose the deal. Um, but also like letting them fail a little bit, but not enough to lose that deal. So it was a very fine balance. And I think what it enabled me to do is have diagnostic skills, building diagnostic skills. And then I'm like, oh, I've seen this before, seeing it so many times in so many different ways. You build your own muscles of like what looks good. And you can identify like right when they say that word, or even the inflection, or how they answer the call, or how they're qualifying, by sound. There are so many things, are they identifying their social style? It's so fun. There, you can look at a call and you can tell probably right now by my enthusiasm, but like I love coaching. That is probably the best part of my job as leader. And I still, even today, I'm a second line leader, so I have managers working for me. I still have one-on-ones with reps and I do coaching with them. I do call coaching with them still because I think that as a leader, that is like the number one way that you can leave a mark on somebody and help them develop.
You have a defined process that you follow when you're coaching one-on-one? Is there other steps like there would be in a sales process?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I'm so type B. I'm definitely like coach through feelings. Like I that is probably one area where I should someday sit down and like download my brain into a process. But I think that's what triple session is here to do now. Now I can be pointed in the right direction and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on with this rep. Let's find these opportunities within the call. I think I have framework like, hey, here's how I view a call. If I'm coaching rep, I say you can always control your bookends. You can control how you start the call and how you finish the call. Whatever happens in the middle, you know, you may or may not be able to control or have a handle on. But again, bookends. Get your bookends so tight. They will remember how you started. They will remember how you finished. Okay. We can polish up the middle, but I typically focus a lot on the bookends. Once those are tight, that enables me to be like, okay, I'm confident that you can set yourself up for success. So now I can really dig into like your discovery process and how are you using your discovery to land a good demo and tie everything together. Um, so I'm not sure if that answers your question, but yeah.
It does. It sounds like you do have a process if you think about working it from the outside in and making sure that, like you said, you completely control the beginning, completely control the end. Those are repeatable. Those are very much within the purview of what the rep can control. Now it's, yeah, there are a lot of variables that take place in the middle, and you have to be agile and know how to handle those conversations. But once we do the real simple stuff in the beginning and the end, we'll work on the more complex stuff in the middle. So it does
Yeah.
sound like you have a
It's
coaching
interesting.
methodology.
Some of the stuff that I find myself coaching on a lot more these days is the like identifying almost like tied to EQ. It's I had this really interesting call where prospect calls in, gets one of our BDRs, and the prospect is clearly a controller. and our BDR is clearly an expressor, and like the prospect is just demolishing the BDR. And then they bring me in on the call saying, hey, I think that we're gonna need like a tag team here because this prospect is too much. Well, I happen to be a controller. And so I am like, okay, I know what we like. I know how to handle us and how to adjust. And so I got on the call. It was fine. This person was not scary. It was great. And it was an important realization that it is still something that we are so focused on, like Sandler and spin and medic and force management and all these methodologies. But sometimes I think the most important part that's overlooked is like how am I actually going to communicate with this person? And so I do a lot of coaching around social styles. I do a lot of coaching around like reading the room. I will go through calls, and this is something that software can't do, right? And I'll ask the rep, like, read their body language. What is it saying to you? Are they engaged in the convert? I want to teach my team to not just be mindful of the words that they use, but how it is that they engage. If the prospect is like sitting back and like crossing their and looking out the window, nodding, or like they're sitting there typing, you know, I would tell, and let's say I'm live on the call with them, I would Slack them and be like, hey, ask them a question to get them re-engaged in the conversation, right? These are it's funny, but these are the things that a lot of coaches aren't doing anymore. They're focused so much on like, oh, are you getting to level 3 pain? Are you, but we're losing some of like the most fundamental, the humanity of selling. How dramatic is that?
Well, to your point, this is where I see the business going. Obviously we built a business around this, but the AI business that we're focused on is to effectively remove all of the, I guess, kind of simple left-brained, hey, did you check the boxes of the process stuff out of the data entry world of the manager? That stuff can be now done by AI. And that's not where we need managers. Where we need managers is to focus more on the stuff that you're talking about. Where can we bring the human element into the conversation and effectively move with agility in those conversations? That's hard. And to your point, I don't know if AI will eventually solve that, but we're a ways away. And now, if you're going to have an impact on your people and on your number, that's where you're going to have it. The check the boxes stuff, the robots can do that work for us. Don't waste my time. Don't slow me down with that. I can have the robots fill the CRM, tell me what information we got and what we missed, which is important, but it's just not an important use of time anymore for the manager. There's more, I guess, more tangible use of time that managers need to focus on versus the check the boxes data entry stuff.
Agreed. I think somebody asked me, it was more tongue in cheek, really, but it was, hey, KO, now that you brought triple sessions on, so does this mean your job's easier, no more coaching? I'm like, no, this means we get to go deeper. This means that, to your point, AI is doing all this cool stuff of like the check the box stuff, but the soft skills, the EQ portion is now where I can empower my managers to really start focusing on, right? It's did the prospect hear you? Are they listening?
Yeah.
You know, what was their reaction? Get them to check in with themselves more, because I think that one thing that I've seen that can be really dangerous is that we ask them, we've become so good at understanding what a good process looks like and the structure around it, that we forget the art of it, which is connecting. And so when you have, great, let's say you crushed medic, you went down the Sandler pain funnel and you did all the levels. You're crushing you're like Super Mario Brothers World 9 at the end. But you forgot the most basic thing, which is connecting to your prospect. Brian Halligan would famously say at HubSpot, how you sell is why you win. And
100%.
and this plays into that. We have an obligation as leaders to, yes, make sure that our team knows how to run a good technically sound process, right? Structure, etc. But if they just like, if they're little robots reading off questions and they're not reading the room, like those are missed opportunities. Those are closed loss deals.
Yeah. 100%. And the way I really think of it is, managers have to look at the what, why, and how of a conversation. And the what stuff is the easiest part. It's like combing through a call to figure out if the rep uncovered pain and business impact. Again, that's just data entry. That's not a valuable use of a time from somebody who's been in sales 20 years, sales leadership for 10, has tons of experience and can navigate those conversations and teach others how to do it. That sales leader needs to focus on the how and the why. It's like, okay, do we get it or not? If we didn't, how can we do better? And why is it important? So you get the context of it. You can understand it and map it out in your own style so you can keep applying it no matter what the situation might be. It's just not a
Couldn't agree
valuable
more.
use of time to do data entry.
I couldn't agree more. I my gosh, maybe I shouldn't talk about it. I was like, my boyfriend is also in sales, and he like puts calendar blocks to fill out notes for his leadership team to get. I'm like, why? Just use technology.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, everyone's getting roasted on this call. You get a roast, you get a roast, you get a roast.
Right.
I'm gonna
That's it.
have no friends and family members left that love me by the end of this podcast.
Still got me. You keep plugging
Oh,
triple
yay.
session the way you are. We're going to do great.
Oh
So
my God.
you're in a position now where you're coaching coaches. So you're a level removed, like you had mentioned, from the front lines, even though you still roll up your sleeves and get in there. But
Yeah.
you have to teach people how to do this job. And I have the very firm belief that sales management is the least prepared, least coached, least trained position, probably in the entire professional world. Like people will just get into that role because they sold really well, and nobody stops to think selling and teaching people how to sell are two completely different things. Those skills are vastly different, and assuming that somebody who sells at a high level can teach others how to sell at a high level is flawed from the inception. But
Yeah.
you're in that role now and you're teaching people how to do that job. What have you learned now in a couple times of having done this role? How do you do that effectively? How do you get people to get other people to sell well?
Yeah. First off, hire well. I think I definitely look for a lot of EQ because a leadership role. So I think step one is making sure that you have the right leaders in place, right? This the leadership role is a little bit of therapy, coaching, accountability, a little parenting. Sometimes it feels that way a little bit. But also, are you credible? Can you get people to believe in you? And can you build trust? So there's so many soft skills that fall into being a good leader. Answering specifically to coaching, um, I think leading by example for me is the most important thing. I will do calls with the entire team and do, white hat, black hat, divide the team up. Like you say what you don't like, you say what you like, and that's the only thing you're focused on. So you're creating a safe space. And then, they get to see how you coach, how you ask the questions. And then afterwards, debrief, like, hey, did you see how I did this? Did you see how I did that? So it's the show, tell, observe model, right? Now, I also I haven't done it in 2 months or so, but I also shadow my managers one-on-ones and their coaching sessions. And I'll give them feedback on how they did on their coaching. So I'll join, and I'll say, hey, team, I'm gonna be camera off. So pretend like I'm not here. And I'll do my app, and this is the asterisk caveat. I will do my absolute best to not interject at all. So pretend like I'm not here. 6 times out of 10, I don't. Sometimes I do jump in because I was like, all right, I can't. It's kind of like this back to the splitter days, right? Like I can't let them fail. You got to let them try and build confidence. But if I feel like we're going way off the path, like I'm gonna jump in and course correct. But I think, and this isn't to pat myself on the back, but I do think that a lot of second line leaders don't do that enough with their managers and actually hear what they're saying, how they're saying it. Just like AI, like I can see stats, I can look at I can data analyze your team to death. But what that's not telling me is how you're getting there the best way, or could I do something to help you get there in a more efficient way? And so yeah, I do call coaching with my managers as well.
Okay. And is it the same formula? I know you mentioned you don't really have a process, but it sounds like you do. If you're coaching a manager, is it coaching through questioning like you would a rep?
Yes, also. I'll ask them like, hey, what's your focus area with this rep? So I want to assess like how well do they know their team. I'll do some research on my own just to triangulate the truth. And I have an idea of where I'm going, but it's an understanding like, do they know who their rep is? Do they have a plan with them? Is it documented? And it doesn't always have to be documented. I'm not great at documentation. But do they have a good feel for them? Great. So hey, like when I jumped on your coaching session the other day, um, tell me two things that you think you did well and tell me two things you want to improve. So that's always been, I hate the shit sandwich. I'm just like, just black and white. Here's the black, here's the white. That I'm very bimodal, right? Binary. Um, so it's, yeah, I think I did this well. I think I did this well. Okay, good self-awareness. Here's the two things. We'll see how far away off we are. And then also gives me permission to be like, great, I'm so glad that you call these two areas out. I agree with you. Have you thought of, and then let's get into like, what are things we can do to change that or adapt? See how far they can get. I had um I had a manager, you'll probably figure out who this is very quickly. I had a manager back in the day. And when you would ask them a question, instead of giving you an answer, they'd ask you another question and another question. And you're like, no, I don't know the answer. I want you to give me the answer. And I'm like, just, it would be so frustrating. So it's important to lead with questions, but you're leading with questions to get them to think. Once you realize they're at the point where they don't have the answer, you have to help them. And so, that's a lot of what my coaching looks like.
Yeah, and to that point, and one thing I've encountered that I learned really early on is yes, leading with questions is the right way to go. Make the person do the work, make them find the answer on their own, but it can be really frustrating if you don't explain the process. So what I learned fairly early on and after having those awkward conversations was you got to set the table. You're like,
Oh,
listen,
yeah.
I'm not going to give you the answer, and this is going to frustrate the shit out of you. But the reason why I'm doing that is not to frustrate the shit out of you. It's to hopefully get you to put the math together yourself so it actually exists and lives longer. So it's the better way to go about it. Because if I just give you the answer, it's going to be in one ear, out the other. Not
That,
you, it's just how the human brain works, and that's it. So, this is the very frustrating, slower, deliberate process we have to go through, and it works. You just have to trust it.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Just like we set an agenda with our prospects, we have to, and I think as leaders, sometimes we skip that part. We think, oh, we have a great relationship with so and so. We're just gonna go right into it. No, I try to be intentional. I'm like, hey, for today, here's what I have, and make sure that they know that there's no surprises. I'm not doing this for a gotcha. I want this to be hard. This is like going to the gym and using your muscles. Like it's gonna hurt a little bit, but you're gonna start building tolerance and muscle memory. And next thing you know, you're bench pressing 200 pounds.
Yeah, this might be the most common shortcoming or thing that trips new managers up that I hear again and again and again, which is they get into the job, they just hit the ground running, and they don't slow it down to align expectations with the team. And they kind of have to get punched in the face a few times to realize, oh, I should go back and just understand how they see the world, let them understand how I see the world, and we get on the same page with how we're going to work together. And that's something that if I could go back and teach myself something when I was beginning, it would be that. It'd be, hey, prime the pump before you jump into it and make sure that you have everything set, it's aligned, people know why you're doing stuff and where you're coming from, and understand how they look at the world and why they do stuff. It just creates so much smoother conversations and less friction along the way.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite questions as a coach is, huh, that's interesting. You know, what were you hoping to learn when you asked that question? And it really tells you a lot about like their thought process. And like honestly, I don't know. I froze. I'm like, okay, that's cool. If you could go back there, we have, you know, this game I actually took from Dave Torres from HubSpot was you know, next logical question. By the way, I love crediting people with ideas that I picked up along the way. The next logical question. So I'll play a game when we do call coaching, and I'll be like, hey, let's pause this here. In a perfect world, what is the next question you ask? And I give them an opportunity to think. And if they get there, it's like, great. So you have the steps in your head. Why didn't you do it? Right. But there's something you said that triggered a visceral response in me. And it was, what do you see first time managers doing a lot? Like the early mistakes that they make. I think another common one, and I've worked with a lot of new managers, is that they want to super rep. They want to so badly fix and close and do all the things. And I think giving them, helping them and encouraging them to stop and slow things down. Just like we tell reps, slow down the process. It's okay to take a step back to make sure that you got it right. We have to do the same thing as leaders. As frontline leaders, it is so easy for us to just be like, oh yeah, do this. This is the next call, and start quarterbacking deals. And next thing you know, you're like, why is my calendar so full? Why are my reps asking me all the questions? They're so dependent on me. No one can do anything without me. And it's because they don't take a step back and do the same thing that we would tell reps to do. And so that is a conversation I've had with a lot of my managers. And the best way for any new managers out there, to remind yourself to slow down and that it's okay to take the time is this analogy. As parents, you and I know that leaving the house in the morning can be one of the most frustrating things. You're like, let's go. I am late. I have to be on a podcast for 9 a.m. with Matt Doyen. Like, it's live, right? And your kids learning how to tie their shoes. There's two avenues you can take. And I'm sorry to some of my current managers. I've used this analogy with you. You're like, now we don't feel special, but it works. You can tie the shoes for them, right? And not be late. Or you can wait, walk them through it. They probably won't get it the first time. There'll probably be a couple of times when you're going to be late, but you're going to be late a couple of times. But eventually the kid is going to tie their own shoe, and you will no longer be late, and they will be able to tie their own shoe. So you don't have to make time for that in your day. Right. And I know it sounds like a ridiculously obvious concept, but I actually made this mistake with my second child, and I was always just tying it for her because I was like, we're in a hurry. You're my second kid. Like, let's go, let's go. And we were in a soccer game, and in the middle of the game, she's like, oh crap. She's like, Mom, can you tie my shoe? I was like, no, tie your own shoe. And I realized that I failed as a parent in that moment. I failed as a leader, right? So you gotta, it hurts, it's painful. You gotta slow it down. You gotta give them time, coach them through it. You know, also make them feel like they accomplished something. But for first time leaders, it's definitely not feeling like you have to do everything for your reps and super rep. Like, take the time, teach them the thing, don't do it for them.
Love it.
Yeah.
We just killed an hour, kid.
Oh, that was too fast. We should make it 2
Wow.
hours.
I've
You're like,
got
no, we've
like,
had enough.
no, we should do it. I gotta block off the Joe Rogan time from now on. I gotta get the studio, get people in, and do like the 4 hour marathons.
Let's
There's so
go.
much stuff. Yeah, I got like a list of stuff I'm thinking of. I
Can we
wanted
do hot
to.
ones though as we're talking?
What's
Can
that?
we do hot ones as we're going? You know, like
Yeah,
eat spicy food as we're doing this, or
yeah.
like shots of tequila, and see, you know, how much how much
We'll
trouble we
keep
get
going
in.
until someone falls out of the chair. Yeah,
It'll
I
be
like
you,
it.
not me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe you. Yeah. Well,
Uh,
this is great. Yeah, you're gonna have to come back now because we have like 17 things that we didn't even drill into, and those would have led to 17 more each. So
I
this is
love
fun.
it. Oh, it was fun. Thanks for the invitation. Say hi to
Mhm.
the fam for me, and we'll be in touch.
All right.
All
See you,
right.
Caleb.
Bye. See
Bye.
ya.